Well, Laurie, so much to cover today, but I think the obvious place to start is Saturday, the 26th of June, because everybody associated with Harlequins is going to have a story they want to tell, and I'd like to hear yours, please.
Yeah, it's remarkable, really, to be honest with you. And I think we were still really getting our heads straight and coming back down to earth from the previous week in Bristol, to be honest. But it's just the most magical day for the fans, magical day for our staff, for the players, and was the conclusion for this season, at least, from what's been weeks and weeks of hard work to try and transition us into a position where we could put on performances that really reflected what we believe we are about as a club, and what we believe it is to be a Harlequin. And so, and obviously, it wouldn't have necessarily been a Harlequins performance if there wasn't a couple of moments throughout the afternoon where we thought, are we going to do this? Despite obviously the reassurance and the confidence from the boys that I've spoken to since that have said, "Don't worry about it. It was always in the bag." But yeah, it was just brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant to be part of this team, this group. For the last 5-6 months, and it's now set us up on the most remarkable platform in order for us to sort of take the club forward.
There were 2 times that I can remember seeing you throughout the day. The first was after the full-time whistle, when you were on the pitch and you walked to the in-goal area where all those Harlequin supporters were in the stands. The second was with those 2 trophies behind you, either side of you, on a table that was acting as a makeshift stage where you got to address everybody, players, families, staff, and some supporters that were here at the Stoop afterwards. Just give us a bit of an insight as to what that was like to say those words, "We are double champions," and to give your thanks to those people who've worked so hard for the club this year.
Yeah, it meant a huge amount. And again, it's a privilege of when you're in a position like this that you get the opportunity to do that. But everyone's worked so hard to try and get us to where we were, the culmination of where we were last weekend, and it had been a slow build up in terms of, we've been through an incredibly difficult 12 to 18 months, but it's been equally rewarding in many aspects. But there isn't a part of the club that hasn't rolled its sleeves up and pitched in, and whether that could be across just survival, but then from a performance perspective, it was just brilliant to see everybody eventually get themselves on the pitch in order to share in that celebration, because, as I say, there's been a contribution from every single person within the club. I'm still desperately sorry that we couldn't get all of our fans in the ground, and that's, I don't say that to sort of prompt another sort of round of frustrated sort of exchanges, but it is what it is. But we couldn't share it with as many of our fans as we wanted to. But I hope that they could view it from afar and still feel equally proud. In the ground, it was amazing. The crowds were so loud on the day, undoubtedly pushed the team on. So then to see the team celebrating like that in front of the fans that were there was brilliant. And then back here to share the emotion with everyone, and to have 2 of the best teams in English rugby, regardless of gender, and this club to officially and factually be the best club in English rugby is such a proud moment for all of us.
And finally, we've had a team full of women's internationals for quite some time now, but finally to get some call-ups for the men's team, very special.
Yeah, absolutely, and rightly deserved, because these guys have been pitching in week after week, and we've all been banging the drum, obviously, for Marcus. I'm thrilled for him. It's right that he's now selected. It's right that he's going to have the opportunity to showcase his ability at a really high level. And similarly for Joe Marchant, I think he's been playing excellent rugby for the last 3 months. Don Brandt, we know what Alex can do. I mean, he's just a phenomenal talent. And really for Jack, it's insane. It's just insane. He's come from through our academy process. He's been a Harlequin, and he typifies Harlequins for me in many respects. So to go from 8-10 weeks ago, we drafted him into the squad. He sees his opportunity. He's been absolutely vital for us in terms of that sort of forward battle through the last sort of couple of months, and to be rewarded then with with a selection to England is just the cherry on top for him. So I'm thrilled for him. I'm thrilled for the academy staff that have developed him, both guys and staff that are not here anymore but have been part of his development process, and his family as well. It's a reward for the hours and hours of sacrifice.
What about the leaders in those groups then? The men's and the women's, the captains, the people who've had to step in when the captains have been injured. They've done a pretty good job this season.
Yeah, they have. It's been a huge sort of collective responsibility. I guess at the turn of the year, we did some work around sort of providing that environment for empowerment, the environment for safe communication, and to develop all of the players within the group. There's obviously natural leaders with any group like that. It doesn't all come down to one person, be that Steph or otherwise. And there's been a real clear sort of development as to how we've sort of taken some of those young men to be stronger individuals, have stronger personalities, but to coexist in an environment where everyone's got a voice, and that voice is listened to. And as I say, it's a close working relationship with the coaches that thus far has meant that we've arrived at the right decisions, the right outcomes, and we are where we are today.
One of the things that struck me when you were making that address to everyone was the sort of diversity of the people around us. And it not only felt like a rugby club, it felt like something that has a community in itself, but also a role within the wider community. And I know that the Stoop has been at the heart of quite a lot of things community-led this season. Tell us about a few of those.
Yeah, so I mean, I certainly see a rugby club. I think it's one of its principal sort of core characteristics is being at the heart of its community. So we've got a fantastic community team, and long may should that continue in terms of the impact and the positive sort of support that we can give to everybody around us, not just here in Twickenham, but certainly where we're based down in Guildford as well. And so yeah, I hope that the success that the club's had in the last few months, and the plans, the platform that we're building, some of which has been, again, sort of reflected through the work we've been doing over the last few months as to the sense of belonging that we think we should have as a club, both internally, but then how we communicate that externally. And I really strongly believe that the continued relationships that we'll have with our supporter clubs and our supporters and the people around us within the fabric of our community is incredibly important, because without them, there wouldn't be a rugby club. And so that's, as I say, that's a big responsibility on us to deliver back to them as much as we can. And days like we had last week, and the ability to showcase this and take rugby as a sport, the way that we play it, the way that we think is really important to us and is important to our DNA, hopefully will encourage more people to come out and play rugby and get behind the club.
Well, the semi-final and the final were incredible occasions, but just before that, we had our second Pride fixture as well, which was a beautiful day here at the Stoop.
Yeah, it was, and again, rightly so. We talk a lot of talk around sport being inclusive, and rugby being a sport for all, and I think the way that we've not just talked it, we've walked it, and it's really, again, it's a proud moment. I think for everybody associated with the club, that we can create these fixtures within our sort of the running order within our season, that we make sure that we put focus on that. And I guess the ultimate ambition is that we shouldn't have to do that really, because it should be genuinely seen as an inclusive sport for everybody. But I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done in order to amplify that message, and we'll continue to do that.
Outside of rugby, Harlequins have played their part in all sorts of ventures, perhaps most importantly, the vaccination centre. What are we on, 50,000 now, somewhere around there?
Yeah, north of 50,000. And it's now, I mean, the process in terms of how we're vaccinating members of the public through the Stoop now is incredibly fluid, it's incredibly fast. And again, it's another mechanism where we think we've taken our responsibility, hopefully, to get our community back on its feet as quickly and as safely as possible. And the relationship that we've had with the NHS through the last few months has been fantastic. And again, as much as we strive to improve and develop as people on the pitch, this is a big opportunity for us to sort of row behind our community and do whatever we can off the pitch As I say, I know that the NHS have been incredibly pleased with the way that we've worked with them, and we'll be here as long as they need us to be to get to the point where everybody's in a good space to come back to the Stoop and follow the team without those restrictions.
Absolutely. That's what I'm looking forward to, is having these seats full again, because the small numbers we've had have made a heck of a lot of noise, and it's been great to have them. Let's get back to the rugby then, because there have been a few things that people have spoken about with Harlequins this year. Obviously, the brand of rugby, but perhaps nearly as many column inches have been given to the coaching situation. And I'm sure you had a grand reveal for the new head coach. Alas, New Zealand television ruined it for everyone. So who is coming on? Can you confirm it? And what can we expect from them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to say is we've been super impressed with the way that we've responded since the new year. We made some tough decisions, and the guys that stepped up have been fantastic in everything that we've asked of them, in terms of how we play, the environment we operate in, how we work, the identity that we play with. But equally, we've reflected a lot, and I guess we took this moment to sort of be quite specific about how we go and announce this. We didn't want anything to distract us in the last couple of weeks. But the best organisations don't stand still. And I think it's important that we continue to reflect in terms of how can we make ourselves better, how can we improve, how can we increase those marginal gains. There's now not going to get us to a position where we're going to win that. It's going to get us to a position where we're going to retain that. And so I think the first thing to say is we've restructured Billy Millard's role. So he's going to stay in a role that's very similar to what he's doing now, but in a Director of Rugby Performance title, which means a lot of the work that we've done over the last few months around working with Owen and understanding what we believe to be the blueprint for our performance plan, which is going to achieve success for us on a sustained period of time. Billy's going to take a real level of responsibility across that, and that includes coaching, and it includes all of the support areas which support the coaches. So our S&C, our medical, our analysis, our recruitment, but also it gives Billy the opportunity to create a performance plan that we think will be true across academy, across our community programs. So all the areas in which we think are going to be really important for us to develop as a rugby club, across our women's program. So we've got the consistency of performance. He'll look after that. And yeah, Tabai Matson is coming in as a senior coach that's going to lead all of our existing coaches, and really is tasked with continuing the journey that we're on and providing a lot of experience into that group to develop us within, technically speaking, within a rugby environment, but also to help develop us as a group of individuals to be the very, very best we can be. He's most certainly not been given the remit to come in and turn it upside down and shake it all up, because we don't need that. We don't need that. What we need is continued experience, continued expertise to come in and help us be better. And as I say, the group that are there now have done a fantastic job, and we're all really looking forward to what he can bring into the group to help us take it forward.
On Saturday, Lewis Liner became the youngest player to ever score in a Premiership final. As we speak, Sam Riley's tearing it up for England under-20s, but they are two of many. The future seems to be very bright for Quins through the academy.
It is, and it should be. I don't say this to sound arrogant, but we're Harlequins. We really should be producing good quality players that are, most importantly, given the opportunity to come through our pathway and have the very best of opportunities to perform at the highest level, both for club and hopefully for country. So we've got a good programme, we've got good individuals, we operate in a very good catchment, we want to improve. We fundamentally see the academy, and it's becoming more, clubs will become more reliant on this, most definitely in future, as the dynamics of the salary cap and our cost base evolve. But we know that youth and that pathway process from the academy into the first team environment is absolutely key critical to the success of this rugby club. So again, it was with huge pride that we saw an individual like Lewis, who in the last 6 months has gone from making his first team debut to then, as you rightly say, being the youngest player to ever score a try, not just one, two, in a Premiership final that was in the end, in the last 5 minutes, the key difference that ultimately got us over the line. And it's not just Lewis. We've got some fantastic other players. We've talked about Kenningham. and there's other really good players that are starting to push through now, and we've got real visibility on a real good cohort of players that are in the 18s group now that we would expect to be making a similar level of participation and positive contribution to the first team within the next couple of years, definitely.
What seems to be happening as well is these young players, these academy players are coming through and they seem to be immensely proud to wear the quarters. What do you put that down to? I
think there's a couple of things. I mean, if you take Jack Kenningham, for example, he's been at this club since he was like at least 13. Same with Lewis. And same with Marcus. So when you get to the point where they then make those debuts, it's a reflection of a huge amount of work, huge amount of commitment. A lot of these boys have been in the stands, they'll have been supportive in other ways around match days, they'll have been part of the first team environment for many, many seasons potentially. So I think the overwhelming feeling of pride and achievement at the club that you've supported for years and years as a fan as much as anything, and then been part of that development process, I think that's what's the overwhelming sort of emotion for those players as individuals. And as I say, for the staff and for the club that have contributed a huge amount to try and nurture that development, there's equally a huge amount of achievement and pride for them as well, and rightly so. And there's nothing more. There should be nothing more that should engender that feeling of happiness and success when you see someone that we first taken in as a 12 or 13-year-old, and then they're running out in their club colours at Twickenham in the Premiership final. I mean, that is, for me, that's the ultimate barometer of success for the club.
Well, maybe the next generation of 12 or 13-year-olds will be back in the stands for September, and it might look a little bit different because there's a bit of building work going on at the moment. So what's happening? What's the redevelopment plan?
Yeah, I think, as I say, as much as you can't stand still on the pitch, I don't think we should really stand still off the pitch. And we're now gearing up towards normality in September, as per the guidance that we've been given. And we hope that nothing changes to deviate that. And when we welcome our fans back, season ticket sales are going extremely positively, as you would imagine at the moment. And the support that we've had from the fans over the last 18 months has just been remarkable. I mean, I can't really put it into context. It's been fantastic. And we've seen over the last couple of weeks how that fan emotion has delivered itself into performance. So, we're doing some works around the Stoop. Maybe some of our longer term plans continue to sort of be evaluated about what we do here in the long term sort of situation. But in the short term, we know that there's improvements we can make to this facility to make it even more consumer focused for when our supporters come back through the gate. So we're looking at ways in which you can improve some of the facilities, be they toilet, be they food and beverage, be they the match day experience that people can have when they come to the ground. More of the information about that we're going to articulate in the coming weeks. But what I can say with real confidence is that when the fans do start coming back to the ground in September, I hope they'll see a different environment. I hope they'll feel a different environment, and it will hopefully be a much more enjoyable one as they see the team defending their crown as champions.
Champions sounds so good. In terms of individual events, are we going to have a big game to look forward to next year?
We hope so, and that's the plan. We'll be expecting to launch our ideas around big game in the coming weeks. So fans should watch with anticipation around that. And we want to make that bigger, better than it's ever been before. It will be 2 years since we've had that event. It's such a big part of our annual calendar. So again, I would urge fans to watch this space with excitement, because we're hopefully going to bring that back bigger and better than ever before.
Well, finally then, going back to the speech you gave on the table makeshift stage with the trophy either side of you, one of the things that really hit home with me was the impassioned thanks that you gave to some of the partners of the club, some of the individuals throughout the club that we, quite simply couldn't function without. And I was hoping you could do the same now. Is there anyone or anything in particular you'd like to say thank you to?
Yeah, 100%. I think this has been an enormous club effort. And whilst we often try not to sort of single out anyone specifically, our sponsors, for example, play such a huge role in how we can continue to sort of exist and contribute so significantly to our sustainability. They've all been extremely supportive of us over the last 18 months. Without them, we just physically wouldn't be here. Without the staff, without the players, without all of the sort of stadium staff and SSP staff, it would be impossible to have had the last couple of weeks that we've had without the months that preceded that. And equally, we touched a bit around, obviously, a lot about supporters and what they've delivered for us and how they've contributed to the success of where we've been over the last few months. But also it's about the families that the support team behind the players and behind the staff. We ask a huge amount of everybody in terms of sacrifice. Sport is such a big commitment. It's such a big contribution to have to deliver. And so when we met after the game on Saturday, we probably had, I don't know, maybe 500-600 people here, socially distanced, enjoying themselves, and rightly so. But a lot of these people were the parents and the wives and the husbands and the partners. So that was as much about them as it was for anyone else, because we physically couldn't be here without a massive collective team effort. And for the future, we've now got the biggest opportunity to really put this rugby club consistently on the platform where I think it should be. And what I said was really, feels like we've now pulled our seat back up at the top table in English rugby, and we're not going to take it. We're not moving away now, as far as I'm concerned. We want to be competing here consistently year after year. So we've done one part of the hard job to get both these trophies in our cabinet. The next phase of the hard work is to make sure that they don't leave the cabinet, and we are successful repeatedly year after year after year. And we've now got the best opportunity to do that, and that's what all of our focus and all our attention is going to be on in the coming weeks and months ahead.